Hey guys, Railfan220 here again, and I'm joined with Ryan, who's the layout owner of the BNSF Railfans layout.
Hi.
Yeah, so I've been talking about an announcement for a long time now, and we're finally getting to it. I know I said that we would do it this past weekend, but life happens and stuff got in the way, so I really apologize for waiting so long. But as you can see, we will be designing and constructing a new BNSF layout. It'll be a double-deck layout, and right now we're calling it the BNSF Central Plains Division, and we'll kind of get into that later. Before we actually get into specifications and more details on the layout itself, we'll just go into a little bit of the background of the layout and what the inspiration behind it is. So the line that we'll be modeling, it's going to be single main line. It's a freelance line from kind of southern Minnesota area to northwest Nebraska, which is the Crawford Hill area. I just took a trip out there, so that was kind of cool to be able to see some live action from Crawford Hill. So that'll be part of the inspiration, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But basically, it would let coal from the Powder River Basin to flow into the upper Midwest on a more direct route, but it would also allow other traffic, like intermodal traffic, to service the upper Midwest from alternative ports instead of just being fed from Seattle. So that's kind of the reason for it. I don't know exactly what the background would be. It's possible that BNSF just had an old line that they refurbished and now use, or it's possible they built it out of need. So that's just kind of the background behind the layout. I'll spread these apart so you can see the two levels. So I guess now we will look at the specifications quickly, and then we'll kind of talk about more of the important details and aspects of the layout that we still need to focus on, but some of the stuff that we figured out. So I'll just kind of zoom in here really quick so you can see this, but I just have this on paper, but as you can see, this is just kind of the layout at a glance, but it's the BNSF Central Plains Division, an HO scale, obviously. The size of the room that we're in is about 12 feet by 28 feet, and after we get done talking about this, we will walk around some, and I'll show you some of the stuff that I've marked out that'll give you some sense of the layout in the confines of this room. We already talked about the area that we'll be modeling, but we'll get more into that. So the Crawford Hill area will be the upper deck, while the lower deck will be the Midwest scenery. We're planning on having it completely signaled through CTC, and we'll also have a dispatcher, so that'll be kind of cool for modeling purposes and operating. So the layout's completely built for operation, and we'll get more into that. The mainline height will vary from 40 inches to 66 inches. The lower deck obviously being 40 inches, and the upper deck will have elevation changes because it's kind of hilly out in that area. So we'll have helper operations on that level, and that'll cause some mainline height differences. So at some points it'll be just under 60 inches, and at other points it'll be closer to 70 inches. The benchwork, probably going to do open grid and L girder construction, but obviously we're still a long way from construction and we still need to do some planning, but right now it seems like the best option. Road bed, we'll probably, obviously if we do the open grid and L girder construction, we'll have some sort of spline road bed. The track, I don't know, we use, on your layout it's code 100, right?
Yeah, code 100 Atlas.
Okay.
Flex.
So I think that's probably the best option just for just reliability, because we haven't had much troubles with derailments and stuff. So
yeah, reliability and price.
Yeah, so it actually it's cheaper to get code 100, so we'll probably do that for the main line, but it's possible just to give some sense of rail height difference. We might go to code 83 on industries, but I don't know. Still got to decide that. The minimum turnout will probably be number 8 for mainline and the yard, and then number 6 we can use for spurs. The minimum radius for the layout is 26 inches. There's not a reason I chose that, but I've been messing around with the radius, or the minimum radius, on a track plan designing program, and it seems like 26 is pretty much the minimum we can run without having conflicts in the narrower part of the room. So that's kind of that. I mean, you always wish that you could have the widest radius possible, but I mean, 22 is actually fine. We run that, so I think 26 is just what'll fit, and that'll probably be the minimum.
Yeah. And that gives you a good range of running ability. Well, almost all equipment run on 26.
Yeah.
Other than like certain blasting and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. So that would. Well, I'm just gonna pull the camera off. Sorry about that. That would allow us to run all sorts of rolling stock, as Ryan said. So, and then where was I? Maximum grade on the main line is probably going to be around 1.5%, and that'll be on the upper level. But that could change. It's just we kind of need to iron out the kind of the length of the climb, and that'll determine the actual percentage. But the helix will have to be somewhere around 2.2% to get enough climb that auto racks and double stacks can clear. And then the actual mainline run is around 300 feet, so that'll be good for operation. It'll create a pretty long mainline run. And then the scenery, still, obviously this is a long way down the road, so we need to figure that out exactly. But plaster cloth and cardboard strips would be good for kind of hills that have a smooth contour to them, but we could also use insulation foam, especially on the upper level where we'll have some rock cuts. And then we'll have a backdrop, obviously, for the layout, since the layout kind of runs around the room. And then I think, I was talking with Ryan, and I think it's probably in our best interest to switch to Digitrax control, just because that's what you run, so I don't know.
Yeah, and we can kind of like stick inside these options too.
Yeah, because that would allow us to like share throttles and stuff. So that's all I have for the specifications there. But I think we'll kind of dive into a little more detail on scenery, I think. So I'll pull this away and we can look at the actual track plan here. I'm sorry for the poor lighting and it's kind of cluttered, but we just gotta move stuff around in the room so I could put down some tape that I'll show to you later. But I'm working off the layout right now. So as you can see, this is the lower level, and just I'll remind you that this is a rough sketch of the layout. The scenery that's here isn't exactly what it's going to be, obviously, and then the industry arrangement, that'll change. That's kind of a fluid thing right now. So industries and location will change, and then the scenery is also not the same. So this is the upper level, much narrower shelves. This is the lower level. So on the lower level, the inspiration is kind of Midwest scenery. I took a trip last summer to Minnesota, and I really liked the area out there. Just kind of flat. There are a lot of farm fields, but it's also really green, and you see some tall grass here and there. So I think that'd be kind of cool to set this in. The main yard you see here, this will be set in kind of South St. Paul area, and this will be the easternmost part of the layout. And then from there, you have industries a little further west there. And just to give you a sense of direction, west, or like trains westbound will be from right to left, so it kind of works that way. Let's say you're facing the yard, trains will come out of staging going west. So lower level is the eastern half of the layout, upper level is the western half. And the reason that I have two separate areas there is because the double deck design allows me to have different scenery without having kind of a illogical division of the two scenery points. So I just like these two areas. This is going to be the Crawford Hill area, as I said. And I also chose the scenery for operational purposes. So the lower level will be kind of the main level. That's where the main yard is. Upper Midwest is pretty populated area, so we'll probably have a town on the end here using Summit Custom Cuts buildings, because we'll probably do that on your layout too. And then around there we'll have a bunch of industries, and as I said, those need to be decided. And then the upper level, I really was interested in the Crawford Hill area because of the helper operations. So that's exactly what we'll have up here. it's not the line that we're modeling. Obviously, I said it was freelance, so the Crawford Hill area is not going to be Crawford Hill, the exact replica of it. So it's going to be kind of a freelance version of it. So we'll have some artistic license there, and we can add things in that you might not necessarily see on Crawford Hill. So I don't have a good kind of scenery draw up here, but just to give you a sense of what it'll kind of look like. I'll put some photos up and videos as well. But you can see over here, this is where the helper pocket will be. And then moving west of there, you'll have some light hills, then it'll transition into some like deeper rock cuts, especially on the peninsula. And then maybe a tunnel, which would be kind of interesting. So the other thing that we need to decide that's kind of crucial to the layout is which way the climb will be. So if you've ever been to Crawford Hill, you know that the climb is heading east. So if you're on the western, or I guess it's kind of more the northern part of the hill, you're at the lower elevation, but as you move your way east and south, you actually climb quite a bit. So to match Crawford Hill, you would climb coming out of staging, but unfortunately what that does is it conflicts with the helix here, and it would be nice to have the staging tracks come out of the wall back here. And just to give you a quick glance of that wall right there, that'll be the staging wall, and then that corner where that tape is, that'll be the helix. So if the staging yard sits lower, it'll kind of those staging tracks can't come out of the wall over there, and that'll conflict with the helix there. But let's say that the tracks climb going westbound. That would mean that when the main line returns over here into staging tracks, this will be at a much higher elevation than where we started over here, which would allow staging tracks to go over the helix, which is that's kind of nitpicking, and we'll figure that out later, but that's just something to consider for the future. And then I guess that's kind of what I was thinking for the upper level there, scenery-wise. Obviously, still need to figure things out exactly, and that's a long way down the road, as I've been saying, but it's kind of fun to think about certain scenery features, so I think a tunnel would be kind of cool, and then obviously the large rock cuts that you see in the Crawford Hill area would be a big part of that. So I guess the lower level, I already kind of talked about this, but this will be mostly industry, and then we'll also have probably a few farm fields or something, so we'll have a little bit industry here and there. And then really quickly, I know I've been talking for a while, we have, oh my bad, we're going to talk a little bit about operations, so I'll keep these out for you guys. The upper level will be kind of based for a helper operations setup, so depending on which way the hill goes, still need to figure that out. There will be a helper pocket at the bottom of the hill, and then any trains heading up the hill will require those helpers, so there will be manned helpers at the helper pocket. And then as they start to work their way up grade, the two crews, the road crew and the helper crew, will have to communicate to not pull their train apart, obviously. And then once they crest the hill towards the top, which will be either over here or over here, depending on which way we choose to make the hill, that'll be the cutoff point for the helpers, and they will drift back down grade. Sorry, I'm just looking at some of my notes. There's a lot to think about here. Oh, and then the other thing about the upper level is we might have some sort of interchange up there just to give it some operational purpose. So wherever the helper pocket will be, it'd be kind of cool to have maybe a couple industries around there, as well as some interchange tracks, which would allow us to have another railroad in there. So we might have some freelance railroad or like short line that'll come service those industries, and they'll drop off the cars at the helper pocket, or not at helper pocket, at the interchange tracks, and then BNSF trains will pick it up from there. So I'm trying to think what else. I think that's about it for the upper level. So that's pretty much all we have. The notes that you see here, you see fertilizer plant, scrapyard. That's not necessarily going to be there. That'll definitely be dependent on which way we have the grade. And then you'll also see that this is start of 2% grade and this is downgrade, and that's not necessarily accurate. That could change, that could be flopped. And I'm probably only going to have one helper pocket, and that'll be at the bottom of the hill. So that's the upper level. Then the lower level, as I've said before, is the main level, and it has most of the industry. There's also a main yard here, and that will obviously be operational. So there will be a yard crew in the yard, and they will be able to build trains and receive trains. And during the operating session, they'll build probably 2 or 3 trains, possibly more, and that'll be dependent on the trains that are actually have a destination that is the yard, because those will come in, and then the helper crew will cut up the cars and create new trains. And there'll also be rip tracks and engine servicing, and that'll be handled by either the yard crew or someone like an engine hostler or a secondary yard crew. The local crew will be based out of the yard, and they'll pretty much head around to each industry and pick up cars and bring them back to the yard, and that'll also contribute to building trains. And then let's see, there will be a lot of industries, so we'd also want to have at least one large industry. So I was thinking maybe an ethanol plant would be nice. I don't know if you have any other ideas for larger industry, but I think something along the lines of an ethanol plant would be nice, because you have multiple switching spots, and then it'll be accompanied by some smaller industries like the ones that we have on the layout. So it'd be nice to save a few of those. And then during an ops session, we'd probably run around 20 trains. I don't know if that sounds right to you, but I think a session would last for a couple hours probably, and then you'd run 20 trains during that time. But I think it would make sense to have somewhere around 2 to 4 trains at a time on the layout, and that might even be pushing it. I think 2 to 3 would be good, but I mean, the main line run's pretty long, so you'd be able to fit multiple trains comfortably without running into each other's blocks or anything. So we'll see about that. That's a long way down the road. And then I think to like completely operate the layout, you need somewhere around 8 operators, give or take a couple, because the staging yards, which I forgot to mention, those will be operational. So you'll have a mole back there who will be working in the staging yard, and he'll be assembling trains on the fly, because I can't have 10 tracks deep back there, so I'll probably only have 5, and that'll mean for every train that leaves, the mole, or the guy operating the active staging tracks, he will have to create another one for that track at least one time during the operating session. So that'll give the guy back there some purpose, and it'll make it a little interesting. Then you also need a yard crew. That's 2 people. You'd need someone who would work out of the yard as like a secondary guy working the industries and the rip tracks. That'd be probably 3 guys total. Obviously, I'm counting up here. And then you'd have a man operating the helper pocket, so there'd be a helper crew, 4 guys, and then you'd probably have 4 or 5 road crew operators, so that'd be another 4 or 5, so somewhere around 8, as I said, and that would be, I think, a pretty good number for an operating session. So that's kind of where we're at right now. I'm not sure I have much else. Ryan and I we'll get back to you with more updates. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing. I know there's always more stuff that I want to say, but I can't really express everything. So this video hopefully gave you some sense of what the layout will be like and what we're kind of thinking it should be like. So I'm excited for it. So sorry for the long wait again, but we'll definitely get back to you with more updates as we decide on a few things, like which way the climb will be on the upper level, and how we'll handle staging, because it's also possible to route staging around the helix. More updates on this layout, but that's kind of the direction we're going, and that was the big announcement. So thank you guys for watching, and look for more videos. And as I said, please comment with any questions or just things you want to say about the plan, anything we should change. Please put that below, because we'll definitely get back to you on that, and we'd love your input. So again, thank you for watching, and check back for more videos soon.